Yom Haatzmaut celebration. Yes. My name is Yahav Barnea, and I live in Toronto. I'm part of the New Generations Leadership Council, and I'm really happy to open this event today. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that Toronto is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to work and live on this land. I would like to thank our co-presenters, ARZA Canada, Hashomer Canada, and Shaarei-Beth congregation. My journey with New Israel Fund of Canada started soon after I moved to Toronto from Israel. I grew up on a Shomer kibbutz in the north of Israel and was brought up on values of activism, social justice, and Zionism. Being involved in society and fighting for the rights of marginalized population has always been important and led me to NIFC. As an Israeli living in Toronto and Canada, I wanted to find new ways to continue working for a better society back home. And NIFC was a natural home for a progressive Zionist person like me. A place where I can safely share my criticism of Israel's actions in Palestine and within Israeli society, knowing that I care deeply about my country and home. So today's event is an opportunity to see how the hard work and struggle for a better Israel can actually also bear fruits. It's an opportunity to celebrate the amazing accomplishments of NIFC-sponsored organizations in Israel, Palestine, that fight for the things that we all care about. So with Yom HaZikaron starting tomorrow night and Yom Haatzmaut after that, we can remember all of the challenges to bring peace to the region, but also take comfort in the progress we are all making. So with that, I would like to invite Rabbi Miriam Margles, I hope I said that correctly, to share a few words. Rabbi Miriam Margles is the rabbi of the Danforth Jewish Circle. She's also an artist, educator, and activist.
Thank you, Toda Rabba Yahav. I'm so honored and delighted to be with you all today. My friends, we are in a deeply significant time in the Jewish calendar, in relationship with both ancestral wisdom as well as modern historical events and awareness. In the patterns and practices shaped by traditional Jewish life, by spiritual and cultural and communal practice, we are between Pesach and Shavuot. Between Pesach, the liberation from external oppression, as well as the liberation from the Meitzar, from internal constriction. And we're walking toward Shavuot, toward the celebration of receiving Torah at Mount Sinai, receiving instruction and guidance for shaping how we live freedom with moral, spiritual, and communal commitments and vision. This is an arc, these days that we're in, an arc of freedom from all that is dehumanizing and harmful to a freedom to embrace interconnected shared lives that are rooted in our deepest values as a Jewish people and our most robust liberatory vision of the world that we seek to build. In the calendar of modern events, we just marked Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, facing systemic anti-Semitism in its most horrific expressions, remembering the vibrant Jewish life that was decimated, grieving those who were killed and elevating their memories. And in marking Yom HaShoah, we also touch into the ways that today we can both mourn that tragedy and continue to consciously heal from the wounds that that profound horror and its impact have made on the Jewish soul and psyche. And as Yahav mentioned, this week we will mark the pairing of Yom HaZikaron, Remembrance Day for fallen Israeli soldiers and victims of violence in Israel, and we celebrate Yom Haatzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, the creation of the democratic modern state of Israel. These days stir a wide range of emotion, and for many of us, conflicting emotions. These days open challenging questions about Jewish vulnerability in the world, important questions about wise and moral pathways to build safety and thriving for Jews, for Israel, alongside safety and thriving for Palestinians. So we meet these days with broken hearts, with open hearts, and with a vision for dignity and peace that we strive toward in the present, in our actions and our commitments. I wonder if we can take a moment together in silence for Jews and Arabs who have been victims of violence in the region. Now, would you please join with me in a prayer for peace for Israel and all its inhabitants? Harachaman, source of compassion, bless the land of Israel, the blossoming of our people's yearnings. Protect it with your expansive love. Spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors by the light of truth. We ask that you bless all its citizens with the wisdom and courage of your good counsel, with the spirit of compassion and compromise, and with a heart of justice and the yearning to share it. May we see the day when war and bloodshed, enmity and anger cease, when great peace and safety, dignity and justice will embrace Israel, all its citizens and its neighbors. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the land as waters fill the sea. Make peace in this land and fullness of joy for all who live there. And let us say, Amen. Today's program is focused on celebrating 74 years of courageous and creative work for social change in Israel. We learn and we lift up with pride the important and good work of so many activists who are embodying the deepest of Jewish values and the highest values of Israel's Declaration of Independence. I'd like to turn it back to Yahav.
Toda rabba, Rabbi, thank you. That was beautiful. So let's go into a little bit of how this event is going to work. So I'll explain a little bit about how everything is going to sort of operate. We're going to have 2 rounds of breakout sessions, which will last 20 minutes each. You will be able to choose your first breakout session, then we will come back into the big room and you will choose your second breakout session. In each breakout, the speaker will speak for about 10 to 15 minutes and we'll have time for questions. At the end of the breakouts, we will come back to the main room for closing remarks. And don't worry, we will record all of the breakout rooms so you can listen to those you missed later on. And I'm now going to ask our activists to introduce themselves and what they are going to talk about in their breakouts. So our first round will be with Maskit Bendel, speaking about social and economic equality, and with Lev Aran, speaking about health equality. So do we have Maskit?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, so my name is Maskit. I'm an attorney. I work for ACRI, Association for Civil Rights in Israel, and I've been working in ACRI for 11 years. I'm already 20 years in the field of human rights. I focus on the rights to living in dignity. And as you might know, in Israel, we have over 1 million people living in extreme poverty. And I'm going to tell you about the newest evolvements in the field of protecting human rights of people living in poverty, about a new court ruling, the Supreme Court of Justice ruling regarding the right to electricity and the right to water, which we were involved a few years ago. And also, if I have some time, I will speak about a precious corner of my work. I would say a corner because I do it for many years, little by little, and I will be focusing on the rights, procedural rights of parents of children at risk. It's a niche, but it's very interesting, and I would be happy to speak about it later.
Toda raba, wonderful. Let's hear from Lev as well.
Lev Aran from Shatil, and I coordinate the Health, Equity and Equality department in Shatil. Health issues in Israel are unique because we had quite a few achievements during the last decade, half decade. And I will be very happy to share it with you to explain why, even when the political arena is not very positive to the NIF, we still can achieve, we can still see achievements that in other fields it is harder to see them. Thank you.
Toda, thank you. So let's go on to our second round. And for our second round of breakout rooms, we will have Uri Keidar speaking about religious freedom and Uri Narov, speaking about gender equality. So Uri.
Hey, so my name is Uri Keidar and I'm the executive director of Israel Hofsheet. We work on promoting liberal religion state policies here in Israel. And I will mainly focus on two areas that have seen a lot of growth, either in the policy itself or in the public support, or both. Those will be public transportation on Shabbat and the lack of civil marriage in Israel. And I will talk about what is happening in those fields, how do we chip in, and what's actually happening as we talk and as we move forward closer to the weekend and closer to Shabbat.
Okay, toda raba. And Ori?
Hi, my name is Ori Narov, and I'm the head of the legal department of IRAC, Israel Religious Action Center, and I'm very, very excited to be here. I will be talking about gender segregation in Israel, and I hope I will give you reasons to be optimistic.
Okay, great. So yeah, we have 4 amazing topics, 2 rounds. So I invite all of you now to choose your options, choose your first breakout session. You now just got a window on your screen to join one of the sessions. So please go ahead.
First class there. So maybe all of them go to school, but they study in different languages. They go to different systems. They don't know each other. And for instance, we don't really have teachers, Jews and Arabs, who work together in the, let's say, in the governmental fields. Okay, maybe some private schools are there, but I'm speaking about governmental services. In health service, we have a very good governmental coverage of most of the things that an Israeli needs. We have 4 HMOs that you said that you will explain what is HMO. Hannah, help me.
Yes, it's a health maintenance organization. I think many people probably know what it is, but we have a bit of a different system here. So it's
okay.
For health maintenance organizations.
Okay, so each of us, we pay, like in all good nations, we pay, okay, so we pay taxes according to the salary that we get. But once we get the services, we all get the same service in Israel. The service in Israel is quite egalitarian, the health service. And And also during the COVID, we saw that the fact that our insurance is a governmental insurance, and all we have to choose is only the NGO that takes care of us, but the service that we get is straight from the government. We saw during the COVID that Israel was quite effective. So also the discourse in Israel, unlike other fields that people want privatization, and they say that the government doesn't know how to do anything, and there is a lot of government bashing. In health, we don't have it. In health, we have a bipartisan consensus that we have to have a governmental health insurance like we have now. So we have in health not totally egalitarian, but relatively egalitarian system for Jews and Arabs, which is unique in Israel. The second thing is we have a bottom-up system. In most of our projects in the NIF, if we won a battle, usually we won it in the apex court, in the Supreme Court. Usually it's very hard for us to win street fights. So we go to the apex court. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. In health, we win battles from the street. We have consensus, political consensus. And once we want to promote services that are lacking in the periphery means the Negev, the south, and the north, the Galilee. Also, the percentage of Arabs in the south and north is much higher than Israel. Let's take the north. The north is the only district that we have a majority of Arabs, 54%. So if in other fields, we have, let's say, only left-wing or liberal wing MPs that will help us in health, even if we fight for Arab health, we will have right-wing MPs that may help us, although they belong to the right wing, which is unique. We don't have it in other fields. What is unique also in our network in the north is that we have 297 activists. And they work in the NGOs, ambulance drivers, in the governmental hospitals and so on. So they have their day job that they get, they're like salaried people. But on top of it, they're also officially our volunteers. It means that we get from them all the real data of the health situation in the periphery, in the north and in the south. So once we come to meet the general director of the Ministry of Health, or even the minister himself, who is like, today he's a friend of us, the data that we have and the data that he has, okay, he has a bit better, but the gaps are quite narrow. It is the one field that the data that we have is almost as good as the data that the government has, because our volunteers, they work for the government and they work for the HMOs that give the services. And the last unique thing is the egalitarian character of health is part of the law. It was passed in 3 readings 25 years ago. So if I can trace a service that in Tel Aviv, it is much better than in Nazareth, I can really fight for this service, because the government cannot say, okay, what can we do? This is like a periphery, this is a center. This is like how the world works, okay? One word about periphery in Israel. And for this, I want to thank Dr. Mark Gutman. I think he's from Toronto also. When he visited our project, we met him. He said that in Israel, we don't really have a geographical periphery. We have a political periphery. It is not Canada that you fly for 3 hours for a remote village. In Israel, from Tel Aviv to Nazareth, if we don't have too many jams, it's like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So the fact that in Nazareth, an Arab male lives 7 years less than the male in Tel Aviv, it is not because he lives 1 hour from Tel Aviv. It is because we could not generate the political will to have the best water that he drinks, the best education that this male will keep his health, the best health services, and so on. Okay, my English vocabulary is limited, so I hope you understand me. Okay, so when we come to the health field, we have legitimacy to be part of the decision making. It doesn't mean that we make the decisions. Okay, the decisions are made by the government, but at least in the periphery for the last 6 years, since 2015, there was not even one major decision in the Negev and the Galilee that we were not consulted. And we could not put our reservations and our advice. And in the most important committee that we had about the Galilee, it is called the Grotto Committee, 80% of our reservations after the first draft, they decided to accept them, which was even for us a big surprise, because even if it was 50%, we would be very happy. I want to say something about Jews and Arabs in the health field. Usually when Jews and Arabs meet to promote progressive social justice and liberal things, we will see both Jews and Arabs that belong to the Jewish Progressive Front and the Arab Progressive Front. That in both cases, they are not a majority in their community. And I try to be gentle, okay? When we come to the health battles that we have to have better services, we really see participation of both Jews and Arabs that usually we will not see in the NIF or also in the other NGOs that NIF is supporting. Because once it comes to health, also people from the Islamic movements, also right-wing Jews that do not belong to the left-wing geographical politics of Israel, even they will participate along with Arabs, and they will see the human side of Arabs and vice versa, okay? So we can lower the, let's say, the walls of distrust between Jews and Arabs much easier in the health front than other fronts that are much more narrative oriented. When we come to health, the only narrative that most people have is that they really want better health care in the Negev and in the Galilee. And Jews understand that without the Arab constituency, it will not work. And Arab understand that without the Israelis, the Jews, Israeli Jews, also the right-wing Israeli Jews, without their lobbying of their MP, also it will not work. So if we want to get the service in 1 year, not to go to the Supreme Court, and then it is pending and pending again, and then after 10 years, we have a verdict that we like or a verdict that we dislike. But if we want to have like a political outcome, a political impact in, let's say, 1 year, 2 years, health is a very good issue. So we want the radiotherapy battle that we had. Today we have radiotherapy in the Galilee, we didn't have. Rehabilitation. We have 660 million shekels, I don't know how much it is in Canadian dollars, of a new budget only for healthcare for the Arab sector or Arab society. I don't know what is the political correct word for this, okay? So, and this was also endorsed by politicians who do not belong to parties that NIF supporters support. And it was the first time that such a huge budget was allocated to health only of Arabs in Israel. So I hope it gives more or less the picture. I will add one thing, that one new thing that we did is we understood that if we work only through the NGO world, it will not work because not each and every person wants to be registered. So we need to have networks of people who do not want to belong to any nonprofit organization. They just want to be activists for an issue and not for an organization. And this gave us like a monsoon of new volunteers that usually we would never see them in, at least in our activities. So I think at this stage, I can accept questions.
Wonderful, thanks, Lev. So if people want to write their questions in the chat, or you can just unmute, you should be able to unmute yourself and just ask yourself. Oh, Lee, I see you have your hand up, so why don't you go ahead.
Thanks, Hannah. That's so interesting what you've told us. And I'm wondering where the Bedouin fit in to this equity, or if they do.
Of course. For instance, I will give an example. The Ministry of Health is the only ministry, and this is, of course, battles that we won. I don't want to say against them, because I think they had the inner voice inside them also, even if they did not voice it, okay? We have the only committee, the only governmental committee that speaks about racism in governmental services, only in health, only in the health department, only in the health department, how to say it, misrad, the
Field.
office, field. Okay.
Ministry,
of course, ministry. I want to just forgive me that sometimes, because I cannot find the word, I'm a bit more, okay. Also, it is the only field that we have a committee that said, we don't have enough Bedouins and other Arabs among our policymakers in Jerusalem. We have directors of hospitals, we have directors of services and so on. But among the, let's say, the bigwigs in Jerusalem, we don't have enough of them. Okay, so now in the, let's say, in those villages and towns that the government does not recognize, and there is really a big battle between them and the government if they stay there, if they're like deported from there. Still, I think the one field that relatively works there well is the health services, even if the land is illegal land as far as the government is concerned, okay? Still, the government will allow the HMO to put a polyclinic there. And other services, it's hard for me to imagine that they will allow to put, okay? Because even in this field and another field, I don't think that the government will do, not the government, the Ministry of Health will do any major step that the Bedouin community is concerned without Va'ad HaRofim HaBeduim, the NGO of the Bedouin doctors in the Negev. They will not do it because they will have a tsunami of protest. And the second reason is because, in a way, outside work hours, they are all friends. Also, the people who work in the Ministry of Health and the doctors, they also try to think how to promote it, okay? And one thing that our forum is doing, we try to create arenas that you can, without a protocol, and nobody writes it officially, people can meet from the government and from the NGOs, and just to raise questions, okay? So even in this field, although we have a sea of change that we need to see. So I'm not saying that everything is good, but if we compare it to other fields, I think it is still a bit better than other fields.
So you're taking advantage of the informal networks that you have among people.
Okay, first of all, we are part of the formal network. Now I'm speaking with you, but I'm supposed to be in a Zoom that the Ministry of Health invited me to decide they want to allocate a new small budget for the periphery. And they want to know our priority. So once I'm talking with you, but once we finish, I'm going to another Zoom. And they will not do it without me. So this is like formal, this is part of the protocol. But sometimes we have these delicate issues that we cannot really put them in formal discussions because we don't even know if the narratives can meet at this. So even we want to check if we can even elevate them to the formal ladder, okay? So then we do it informally, and sometimes from the informal, after 1 year, it becomes a part of the formality. It's the same with the racism. We were not sure at all that the ministry will admit that it has a problem of racism inside the system. So first we had to have informal meetings. Nobody wrote a protocol. And once we felt that it is mature enough within the Ministry of Health, only then we suggested. And we knew that at least few people will look at it positively. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
We just have 1 minute, but I see, Lev, we have a question in the chat asking about what's being done to address inequities in the determinants of health. So access to resources and opportunities that promote health.
Okay, so health is not only services, and we know that health is much beyond. So if we have only a minute, so one of the things that we fight for is all the health issues that are not connected to the services, but connected more to the outcomes of health. And in this field, we are not only in contact with the Ministry of Health, but also with the police, with the Ministry of Education, with rabbis, with religious Muslim leaders, and so on. But again, the answer is too long, but I hope in a way it meets the question.
Well, and Lev, you were very generous in saying that people could email you afterwards with any additional questions.
Yes,
so I'm just going
do.
to put your email in the chat as well. So Eileen and anyone else, please, Lev has generously offered to be in touch. There we go. Perfect. So I think we just have 1 minute. Oh, and I also wanted us to be able to talk about the instability in the government. There's too much to talk about, but.
So I can say something about the instability?
In 50 seconds, go ahead.
I don't need more than 50 seconds.
Okay.
In health, usually in most of our fields, we need a center left-wing government. Otherwise, we cannot get anything unless we go to the apex court. In health field, we need more stability because we can achieve things even if we have a right-wing government. So we wish that we will have stability, and even if the stability means that we don't have the government that we want, still stability is better for us than instability in this field.
Thank you so much, Lev. It's really interesting and also very heartening. So with that, let's go back into our main room, and thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Do that after. So go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. So let me just start again saying how excited I am to be here with you. I'm very thankful for having me here. So as I said before, I'm the head of the legal department of IRAC, Israel Religious Action Center. And as I understand, this event is all about celebrating the social justice values enshrined in Israel's Declaration of Independence. And what I would like to talk to you about this evening here in Israel is one of the leading values enshrined in this declaration. That's the value of gender equality. IRAC, which I work for, was established in 1987. That is the public and legal advocacy arm of the reform movement. We work tirelessly to promote gender equality in Israel, and one of the fights that we lead in order to achieve that goal is the fight against gender segregation and the exclusion of women from the public sphere. By that, I refer to attempts done by religious extremists to limit both the participation and the visibility of women in the public domain. So over the course of the years that I've been working for IRAC, I have encountered so many exclusionary practices aimed at making women simply disappear from the public sphere, or at least trying to silence them as much as possible, all under the argument of modesty. And I'm very, very glad today to share with you some of the successes that we had in this fight for gender equality in Israel. Let me start by saying that it wasn't my plan to talk about gender equality in the Western Wall Plaza in the Kotel, but since I started my day at Women of the Wall Rosh Chodesh service this morning, Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and I'm still under the impression of this experience, I will start with this. For the past 6 years, I'm attending every month, or I try to attend every month, this service. Now, unfortunately, the women and the men that join this women every month for this service suffer from great deal of violence aimed at them. This violence comes from Haredi extremists, ultra-Orthodox extremists who do actually everything in their power in order to make this service not go through and in order to disrupt it in every possible way. And the reason that they do it is only because they disagree with the way these women want to practice their Judaism. They would like to pray wearing a prayer shawl. They would like to pray with their phylacteries on. They would like to pray out loud, reading the Sefer Torah, and that is something that is being denied of them. So this morning, the level of violence that I experienced and this brave women experienced at the Kotel was highly exceptional. And I'm not talking just about the insults, the slurs, the spitting, the shoving, everything that you experience every month that you get there. I got so many curses this morning because I'm a Reformed Jew. I belong in Germany. I'm a Nazi. I should, my mere presence in the Kotel, the abomination and it desecrates the holiness of this spot, of this place. People wished me that I'd burn in hell, etc., etc. So after finishing this beautiful service, I went to the police station and I filed a complaint against someone that attacked me. And on the way out, as I was exiting the police station, I bumped into Anat Hoffman, which is the chairperson of Women of the Wall.
Yes.
And I was, which came to file a complaint herself after she was attacked at the women's section. So I shared with Anat my feelings. I was still shaken by the events of this morning, and I was looking for a thread of hope and some comfort. And Anat did just that. She said to me that women's rights at the Western Wall Plaza improved immensely over the last 3 decades. Many things that were prohibited in the past, such as, and regarded by the police as a felony, are considered not customary. Women can pray out loud while wearing the prayer shawl, their phylacteries. No one will arrest them for that. And I thought to myself that this is such a major advancement that the brave women of the wall and IREC's legal team, with IREC's legal team assistance, have accomplished during this period of time. And I'm so grateful for this uplifting perspective that Anat gave me. And I'm so happy that I can pass it on to you. Now, I know that we still have a long way to go in order to achieve gender equality at the Kotel, but there's definitely a lot to celebrate for what we've achieved so far. Another victory that I want to share with you, we've just had a court ruling regarding defacement of women's figures in billboards in Jerusalem. I don't know if you heard about it, but in the city of Jerusalem for many years, it has been almost mission impossible to keep billboards showing figures of women from being defaced and torn down by religious extremists. Now, is it okay if I share a screen, Hannah? I would like to share.
Yes, you should be able to. Does it let you if you press share screen?
Yes, share. So.
Yes, perfect.
Yes, okay. That's from the Kotel. This is what I wanted to show you. This is what happens when you see billboards with women's figures in Jerusalem. You see the women's figures are erased, 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 and that's how it goes on. So we actually sent so many letters to the municipality of Jerusalem. We demanded that they do something about it. And we kept getting messages from them that they just don't have the resources to do it because they know it's forbidden. They know it's against the city bylaws. They know that it's a bad thing that's happening throughout the city, the defacement of women, but they just can't seem to manage to put their hands on the people that are responsible for this. Now, that is obviously unacceptable. Of course, they have every possible resource. They're the municipality, and this is their duty. Now, what happened eventually that drove us to file a petition to the administrative court in Jerusalem was that the photo of Peggy Parnas, which is a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor picture that was hanging on an outside wall of the municipality. There was an exhibition about Holocaust survivors, and her photo was hanging over there. It was defaced 5 times, and the municipality didn't do anything about it. So we decided that enough is enough, and we filed this petition. And immediately as this hearing started, the Judge Shirley Renner, just stood up and she said to the representative of the municipality, this is unacceptable. It will not happen in the city of Jerusalem. There is no way that I will let you keep doing this, what you're actually not doing anything. She forced them. She just told me, listen, whatever you want, I'm writing it. It's going to be a ruling of the court of law, and they will have to do whatever they have to do in order to make it happen. So now this municipality has to hire inspectors to handle this widespread incidents of ultra-Orthodox defacing billboards depicting images of women. And she ordered the municipality to meet with local police department. Could you believe this is something they didn't do? They didn't even meet with the police to see how they can enforce the law. This is just unheard of. And they have to place cameras where billboards are being defaced over and over and over again. They have to place cameras. They have to keep watching and monitoring these cameras to see who's responsible for this defacement and file criminal charges against them. Now, the municipality is still dragging its feet, I might say. She's very slow on implementing this ruling of the court of law, but we keep monitoring this and we make sure that she will do the right thing or what she has to do. So that's a major success, and it's very, very, very important. Another place I would like to tell you about that we repeatedly encounter practices of gender segregation are cemeteries. Women keep turning to us, to Iraq, with complaints regarding segregated funerals in which men and women are required by the Chevra Kadisha. This is the burial society. By the Chevra Kadisha, which is it's the body that's in charge of running the cemetery and conducting the funerals, to perform gender segregated funerals. Now, this is completely illegal. They say that men must separate from women from the beginning of the ceremony, from the part where the eulogy is read. After that, if in some instances, women that would like to go through a kri'ah when they tear your clothes, they are told that if you want to go through kri'ah, then you have to stay in the back while the men go and follow the deceased to the burial plot. That's the only way for you to go through kri'ah. And if you want to eulogize, they won't let you eulogize. They want you to say the Kaddish and so on and so forth. So after we received so many complaints regarding this matter, we understood there's a broader problem here. And in addition to filing lawsuits against several burial societies, we addressed the Ministry of Religious Affairs, and we demanded that they issue a directive emphasizing that this is illegal. This whole practice is simply illegal. And this is what they did in 2013. And recently they did this once again in light of our demand that they do it again in January 2022, since we still kept getting complaints regarding this illegal practice. Just recently, we had a mediation procedure in a lawsuit that we filed on behalf of two daughters that buried their mother. And during the funeral, the representatives of the Chevra Kadisha just refused to count them as part of the minyan, since they're women. And they are reformed. They are part of a reform congregation here in Israel, and they wanted to say a kaddish according to the reform customs. And once the Chevra Kadisha representative heard this reform kaddish, he just went out of his mind, and he blew up the entire funeral. So we managed, this is all completely illegal, and they filed this, the lawsuit after the mediation procedure was done. We reached a settlement according to which the Chevra Kadisha will pay them 25,000 shekels in compensation, which is roughly $7,000. They will apologize to them, and they will recognize their duty to perform Jewish funerals, even when the funeral is not held according to Orthodox customs. So this is also, it's a small winning, but I think it's extremely important. If more and more lawsuits will be filed against this burial society, they will understand that we will just not stand for it. One more story I would like to share with you. Hannah, do I have time?
Yes, we have until 1, so let's just leave a little bit of time for questions, but one more story I think is okay. Okay,
so one last story regards gender segregation and public transportation. You all probably heard that we had this Supreme Court decision in 2011 stating that gender segregation and public transportation is illegal. But ever since this ruling, we still get complaints regarding gender segregation buses in certain bus lines. Now, we keep filing lawsuits against the bus companies, against the driver, and only recently we assisted someone that addressed us in a complaint that we filed at the Ministry of Transportation after she wanted to board the bus, and the driver stood up, went to the front of the bus to the stairs, and he said, I have room only for men. Only 12 seats are left, so only men can board. Now, she tried to board after 10 men boarded, and he stood up and he told her, you cannot board this bus. And he picked 2 men from behind her and told her, come, you can board the bus. And he left her behind with all the other women that waited there. Now, she filed this complaint to the Ministry of Transportation, and just recently, the ministry pressed charges against the bus company and against the driver, and they were forced to pay 20,000 shekels in compensation to this, her name is Nur, and in addition to that, the driver was made a commitment that it cannot conduct himself in the same manner for the next 3 years, and if it happens, his license will be disbarred. In addition to that, we are going to file a civil lawsuit and get her more money because she deserves that. She was so completely humiliated by this experience. It was so demeaning. So, as I said, I hope I gave you some optimism regarding gender segregation in Israel and that we're heading in the right direction. I know that we still have a lot of work to do, and I do want to emphasize that I think that we couldn't do it without your support. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ori. I see, Esther, we have a question in the chat. Esther, did you want to say your question, read it aloud maybe?
I have a yipping puppy in the background, but I'll try. So I understand the legal process is so critical to change and policies where you have to win. But it sounds like even with that, the cemeteries, the Kadisha societies kept doing the same thing. The bus drivers keep doing the same thing. Are there any, it may not be your department, but are there any attempts at dialogue, at finding allies in the Haredi community to begin to
don't forget it.
behavior or attitudes or something?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I'll just it's a wonderful question because sometimes we have Haredi clients that come to us because they cannot find help within their community. You know, so many times people think that this community is made of, is characterized in a certain manner, and they're actually not. There are so many segments inside this community. So when people, for instance, in this municipality of Beit Shemesh, where they had modesty signs scattered all over the city, came to us for help for the reform movement. When people hear from a Haredi community reform, they freak out. They don't want to have anything to do with us. But they made it through to us, and we provided them with the help. So that happens. But generally, most, I think, unfortunately, most of the Haredi community just don't want to have anything to do with this. And if we try to get in touch with them, they don't want it to go in public. So we have to do it in a very secretive manner. But they do approach us, and they do want to create change. That I can assure you.
Joan, I see you had asked when the court ruling happened. Which court ruling do you want to?
The first one, the first issue that you discussed.
Regarding the Kotel?
No.
The
the
vandalism?
2011.
Yeah.
The 2011 ruling? The gender segregation in the buses?
No, before then, but I think really you answered the question by the difficulty in enforcing court rulings. And
this is such a major difficulty, you know, because we have great court rulings and then the problem is implementing them. But I tell you, this is only something that you just have to persevere. You have to keep attacking. Eventually it will happen. They will have no choice because we know that we know that we are right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I just said toda rabba. That was such a powerful presentation. Much appreciated.
Bevakasha.
And Ori, I know we have only 17 seconds, so I see someone else asked about the next issues Iraq will be addressing. Do you want to maybe share your email in the chat if people are way people can get in touch with you to ask questions?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Thank you.